next session is going to be great. This is titled How to Thrive as a Reality Capture Service Provider. And our presenters have assured me that they're going to give away all their trade secrets tonight. We've got two presenters, Brendan and Brandon. Let's go.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you guys for showing up. I know it's late in the day, and there's a lot of different sessions you can go to, so I appreciate you taking the time to be here. Initially, John reached out to me and asked me to present on this topic, how to thrive as a service provider. And I thought, well, John, how do you thrive as a service provider? Most days what we do feels more like survive, not necessarily thrive. But we tried a lot of different things to grow our business, to be successful. Some of them have worked really well, some of them not. And so I agreed to do this and talk about it, and I really hope that this initiates some conversation here today, tonight, tomorrow, so that we can learn from each other on how to make this thing successful. So to introduce myself, I'm Brendan Welsh. I have a background in civil engineering and land surveying. I've been using laser scanning since 2007, and I've been the director of TrueScan since 2016. So for the last 5 years, I've been 100% focused on reality capture. That's all we do, every day, all day. Brandon French is here. He is the guy who leads our field services, the chaos of trying to keep people happy, trying to keep clients' work pushing forward, trying to keep people and equipment going to the right places. My background is in surveying, dimensional control, quality control, precision measurements. Brandon started scanning in the retail space, and his expertise is just getting it done fast. If you want somebody to scan the most square feet in a day, it's him. When he first came to work for me, he went down on his first project and he said, "Is this a good time to tell you I've never used a target?" And I was like, that's okay, we got guys that know how to do that. So we have a lot of complementary skill sets: precision, accuracy, and speed and efficiency. I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about TrueScan. Part of what I'm going to talk about today is selling yourself, selling your company, selling your service. And to do that, I think it's important that you understand your identity. Who are you, and why are you different than other service providers in the market? And what value do you add for your clients? TrueScan is based in Cincinnati, Ohio. We are a dedicated reality capture division of a larger engineering and surveying company. We're marketed differently because we want to reach a national audience. Our scanners go everywhere. This scan map was from the fourth quarter of last year. Those were boots on the ground projects. So we've marketed and branded ourselves to a national audience. The things that differentiate us are there's survey companies that have a scanner and might have a guy or two that know how to use it, and it comes out of the closet a few times a year. Our guys scan every day. Thousands of scans every day, every week are done by our team members who do only that. We have a modeling department that only does modeling from our point cloud data. So we're focused, we're dedicated, and that brings a certain level of expertise. We're a little bit larger. We have licensed surveyors, we have licensed engineers, we have graduate architects, we have a guy with a metrology background, we have a guy with an IT background. All those skill sets are complementary in collecting the data, processing the data, and delivering it to our clients. I bring this up because there's always a competitor out there who just bought their first laser scanner, and they drive it around in their car and scan projects. We're going to be more expensive than them, I promise. But we bring not only more manpower, more experience, more expertise. I forgot where I was going with that. We have a lot more technology, a lot more equipment. But you're not just paying us for the hours we spend on your site. You're paying us for the years of knowledge that we bring to every project. When we have a hiccup, when we hit a road bump, we have a lot of expertise in-house that we can use to troubleshoot. We also have a really big network of other providers nationwide. So we bring a lot of expertise to our projects, and that's one of the things we try to hone in on with clients to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. As you develop your brand, as you develop your value proposition, as you try to drum up new business, it's important to remember what it is you're doing. Reality capture is the process of collecting field conditions and recording them in a digital format. That sounds really cool, but it's not going to win over any new clients. What you really need to do is understand your value proposition. This is what we're up against a lot. On the left, you have a set of plans that somebody's gone out and verified and written red line measurements on. On the right, you didn't even have a set of plans. You went out there and started drafting that yourself. These take a lot of time in the field to collect. They take an incredible amount of time in the office to reduce into CAD or Revit, and they're fraught with error. Our process is faster, it's more accurate, it delivers a better product, and it minimizes all sorts of risks and unknowns that are associated with collecting field measurements like this. Yet we still have conversations with architects every single day who can't monetize scanning. So that's what you're going to be up against as you're trying to grow a laser scanning business, is how do you convince them that what you're doing is better than this? Your value proposition is really important. You never know when you're going to meet a client. You never know when you're going to organize lunch and learn or have a first call and you need an elevator pitch. So it's important to have those selling points kind of well-oiled. Our process reduces unknowns, it minimizes risks, and it prevents painful and costly embarrassment of inaccurate or incomplete building documentation. You not only save time and money, but you save your client headaches, and you save them embarrassment to their clients. So this original topic had a lot of different points in it. We had business development, we had operations, we had quality control, we had talent management, we had client experience. I picked a few of them and I'm going to kind of glaze through them. If you guys have questions, feel free to ask now, at any time, or at the end. I'm happy to answer.
Real quick too, also, if you do have questions, we're recording everything. So we got a mic in the back, and we can run around and just raise your hand, we'll get you on the mic.
So as the director, I spend most of my time focused on business development. Business development incorporates BD, sales, and marketing. Those all intersect and overlap and have their different functions. Looking at business development, I kind of broke it down into three categories that I'd like to talk about. Growth business versus growth-driven business, acquisition versus retention, and lead sources. So a growth business is one where you have a product or you have a service, you quit your job, refinanced your house, and you bought a laser scanner. Now you got to get out there and sell that. You're knocking on every door you can find, talking to anybody that'll listen, offering to scan anything they got for any amount of money. A growth-driven business is one that sits back and analyzes the market, analyzes the clients in that market, and determines what they need. What do people want? What kind of problems can you solve? How can your process alleviate pains, threats, and fears that your clients experience every day? Sales professionals will tell you that the growth-driven business is best suited for long-term success. When you're a small provider, you need cash. You need cash flow to make payroll. So you have to be a growth business to some extent. So it's a balance, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is balancing. So I talked about marketing and sales relationship. They both have different functions. Sales is really a pull function. You're trying to get people's attention and pull them into their business. Marketing is pushing out social media, email, web blasts, advertisements, and I'm going to get into that. There's a lot of different options. They all have associated costs and effort inputs, and so you have to find a balance that works for you. One thing I would highly recommend if you're starting a small company is to develop a strategic plan. Where are you going to spend your time? Who are you going to go after? Do you want to be a healthcare scanner? Do you want to do reality capture in the retail environment? Do you have a lot of connections in the commercial office space? These are all really good, viable industries that need reality capture services. And we want to do them all, but you have to focus your time and effort. You have to think about your customer journey. So from the first time that customer talks to you and gets your sales pitch, your elevator pitch, to the first time they trust you. And why should they trust you? To executing their project, to handing over the deliverable, to following up with them to make sure that they can use it and make sure it meets their expectations. That's all the customer journey. Your brand development, that goes back to your value proposition. Why should someone use TrueScan when there's somebody cheaper out there? What is your brand? What are you trying to deliver, and what does your brand say about that? Again, market focus. What are you trying to do reality capture in? What kind of technology do you have? What kind of services are you offering? You can do reality capture as a service with a Matterport camera, or with a Ricoh Theta, or with a really expensive terrestrial scanner, or drones. What kind of technology are you going to purchase, and who do you intend to serve, and how do you intend to serve that? If you just buy a scanner and think you're going to make it big, it's going to be tough. So I highly encourage people to develop a strategic plan. There's all sorts of resources out there to do it, and it's well worth your time. Acquisition versus retention. Sometimes it's referred to as hunting versus farming. Acquisition are new leads, people you've never worked with, companies you've never worked for, possibly in industries or applications you've never done before. Retention, you get a project with a client. How do you keep them happy? How do you do more work for them? Where do you spend your time? Going after new leads or following up with existing customers? And how do you find that balance that works best for you and your company, given that everybody has limited time and limited resource? So existing is existing work from existing clients. Maybe you're doing the second phase of a big project. Maybe you're doing another building. Maybe you've gotten your 14th store in a retail chain. These require very little BD marketing input because you already have that trust and that relationship, but they require more operations, and this is where your operations is your sales, right? Because they know you, they trust you, they can depend on you. The work here is making sure that your team is delivering an exceptional client experience. New existing is new work from an existing client. Say you meet an architect, you do a great project, she works for a company that's got 300 people. Okay, how do you wedge yourself into that relationship and get her to tell her friends about you? If they got 300 people, they're doing a lot of projects every year. How do you get an opportunity beyond the one that you did, since you did such a great job and they were so happy? And then the new is going to make relationships with clients you've never worked with before. This has the broadest range of potential because there's so many out there. But it also requires the most amount of input and has the lowest ROI. How many people in the room have gone out and done a lunch and learn for a new client hoping to win business? Derek, put your hand up. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but they're painful. They have a low return for me. I don't know about you guys, but I've talked to a lot of rooms of people, and they all smiled and said thank you, and it was really tough to get business from them. Cold calling. There's people who can help you with cold calling campaigns and cold calling strategies. It's still it's a painful endeavor. It's a big ocean with like very few fish in it, right? And you're sitting there waiting for a long time. As part of having to develop a strategic plan, how many hours a week are you going to spend doing cold calls? How much money are you going to spend every year doing lunch and learns? How are you going to find a balance in here that optimizes the return that works for your business? These are things I wish I would have thought out and planned more when I started. So I'm trying to give you some hindsight from myself many years ago. So lead sources, where do leads come from? This is your new business and existing business. You have repeat. Those people come back because you did such a great job and they couldn't have done that project without you. Your reality capture data actually saved them on that. So you got to keep them happy, you got to keep them coming back, and you got to convince them to scan more projects or capture more projects. Referrals, if you do such a great job, can you tell some of your friends about me? Referrals are awesome. I know I've gotten some good ones. John's gotten some good referrals. We were just talking about this yesterday. Oh man, it's such a good feeling to have somebody call you and say, hey, so-and-so gave me your number. Can you come scan a model of my building? Because they've already got trust for you. They already believe in your process, and they believe in you, not because you told them, because somebody else said it. I can tell you I'm great, but if somebody else tells you I'm great, you're far more likely to believe it. Then you get into new business. And so there's marketing, direct marketing, and indirect marketing. Direct is the hard stuff. It's the work, cold calling, presenting at conferences, lunch and learns, email, web blasts, social media campaigns. They take a lot of work, blog posts, but they can also reach a really wide audience. Indirect is advertising. How many people in the room pay for advertising? 2, 3? It's a big undertaking. Google ads are a very complicated thing. There's a heck of a lot of people looking for services on the internet. That's how people shop now. That's the current yellow pages. Again, having a formulated plan to understand how you're going to balance your indirect and direct marketing, how much time every week you're going to spend calling old clients, calling existing clients, people you haven't heard from in a while, asking them what they're doing, taking them out for coffee or lunch. If you don't have any kind of plan, it's a lot like fumbling. Competition was on the list, and I think this is a really interesting subject. If you're new to scanning, new to reality capture, if you're new to this conference, make sure you network here. It's one of the most important things you can do. Part of the value that TrueScan will bring to a project, we have a lot of people that can do field work in our division and then in our parent company. But for projects we can't handle, the size, the scope, we have a network of providers. One of them's sitting right next to me, another one's out here in the audience. There's probably a dozen different companies at this conference who I can call to borrow scanners, to get help with registrations, to do modeling. So this industry is really unique, and it's really fun. It's one of the reasons I love it. In no other industry that I've worked in can you call a competitor and ask them how to troubleshoot a problem. Most of them will tell you to have a nice day. But laser scanning, there's a lot of people here who will take all kinds of time to help you troubleshoot your problem. We do it for them, they do it for us. I would say every year something like 25% of my revenue comes from other service providers giving me work. And through those relationships, we develop so much expertise and so much knowledge. We were just talking to a friendly provider up on the exhibit floor who was asking me when I'm going to get a mobile system. He's got 3 or 4 different ones. And I said, well, I'll get one when you tell me which one works the best. But having those connections is really paramount to being successful in this industry. Are there any salespeople in the room, like Leica or Pharaoh? Okay. When we have a real problem, calling your sales rep is usually not the first source of information that I rely on. Calling other people who use scanners every day, that's how you're going to get answers. If you're new to this or you don't have a big connection network, find one in this room, find one on exhibit floor tonight, come see me afterwards. I'll be glad to introduce you to some people. Biggest source of competition that we face when we're engaging current and new clients is not competitors, it's to scan or not to scan. We show people that our process saves time, money, and energy, and there's an amazing amount that still somehow justify in their head going out and doing hand measurements. Or maybe they find an old set of plans in the basement that are sort of complete, and they're only 80 years old, so they're going to build out a Revit model from that. Indecision is a big competitor for us. Time kills deals. And we all know if you've submitted to a proposal to a client, every day, every week that goes by, the chances of that project actually happening diminish. I don't have any secret formula, but following up with people, engaging them, making them trust you. Some people are new to this. Some people used scanning once a long time ago and it didn't work out so well, so you have to kind of rebuild. Staying in constant contact with people is the best way to avoid losing a project to just pure indecision. There's low price providers. If you're my client and you come to me and you say, well, I also met this fellow and he's got a BLK 360 and I think he gave me a really good price to scan my 1 million square foot manufacturing facility. I'll ask you a few questions, but if that's the way you need to go, then I guess that's the way you need to go. If you only care about bottom line price, then I'm probably not the provider for you. As you start your own company and you build out your own business model, you have to ask yourself, what kind of technology investments are you going to make? There's nothing wrong with the BOK 360, but it is a specific tool with a specific capability and specific limitations. And you have to understand that there will always be somebody who can do it cheaper, but what's your value? And then you have architects onboarding their own capability. That's a tough one. Typically doesn't last very long, but it will get them out of your project loop for a while. And then collaboration, like I said, every year 20 or 25% of our business comes from people who are here at this conference. So competition can be a bad thing, but in this industry, your competitors and your other providers can be a really good thing. Technology, one of the selling points that we bring, we're professional land surveyors. So we have survey grade GPS, robotic total stations. We have survey grade mapping drones. We have the latest and greatest in laser scanners. We try to be fairly brand agnostic. The equipment that we have for a very specific purpose. We have a range of equipment that can deliver different accuracies, different speeds, different deliverables. And it's important for you to help your client understand the reason you have a certain cost that may be more than somebody else is because you've spent more time and money on field equipment, on licensing, on software, on IT infrastructure. So it's important to understand your technology and the value that brings to a potential client. Contracts and collections. Again, I'm speaking out of my personal experience. I don't purport myself to be an expert on any of this, but I think I've had some valuable learning lessons, and I think it's good fodder for conversation. Things that I've learned in this business. Architects love pay-when-paid contracts. Service providers, not so much. I don't know how many architects sign my contract with my terms and conditions that say net 30. And then I go to collect on my invoice and they're like, well, we just pay when we get paid. So whenever we get paid, we'll pay you. I'm like, yeah, but you signed a contract. Come on. How many in here have their own standard contract language versus using some sort of AIA type document? Do you guys use, okay. How many people get their terms and conditions signed more often than they sign someone else's? Okay. So we use a company called Dun & Bradstreet. It's a subscription service. They run a credit report. And it's not just credit. They basically assess a company's risk for failure to pay. And so we get new leads in, we meet people, and people find us through social media and advertising. I don't know who they are. So we run this to kind of vet them, because it doesn't do any good to do work and not get paid for it. And we'll ask for retainers. How many people ask for retainers on their projects? It's kind of awkward, but not as awkward as not getting paid. And one thing I've learned is that when people don't have a problem paying, they don't have a problem paying up front. If they have a problem paying up front, they're probably going to have a problem paying you later. So I quickly got over that, and if depending on how their report comes back, I might ask for a 50 or 100% retainer. Passing it off to the owner is a problem all the time. We work on a lot of hotel projects where they're renovating a historic building. We have a relationship with a large, national, prestigious architecture firm. We give them a proposal with their name and contact information, and then I get it back and it's signed by Fred. I'm like, who's Fred? I'm like, well, that's the developer. I don't even have their phone number or email address, but I got their ink on this contract. So then I have to go find out who this person is, and I want to talk to them. If we're going to do business and I'm going to get into you for some money, I'm going to mobilize field crews to other cities, I want to hear your voice. Contracts are an interesting thing. We've had not many occasions, but we've had a few where we really had to chase people for money. Our legal team told us that it costs at least $25,000 to litigate, and if you go through litigation, you're looking at $50,000 to $100,000. Full transparency, our average project is less than $10,000. I don't have any leverage. It doesn't really matter what they signed. I'm not going to lawyer up to go after an $8,000 scam. So what's really important here is the relationship, right? Talking to people. But you've already had to talk to them to get this job, build the trust, explain your value proposition, tell them about who you are. Just like having a formulated strategic plan, you should have some of those thoughts and conversations well-oiled. Why should they trust you? How do you know you're going to meet their expectations? All those kinds of things are important to think about. Contracts have a lot of other stuff in them, indemnification, limits of liability. If you're doing very large projects, you should really understand your vulnerabilities. And I'll kind of leave it at that because contracts could be its own presentation. Collections, I kind of talked about. We've gone so far as looking to try to get a lien on a building because we couldn't get paid. And depending on what state you're in, like in the state of Ohio, to get a lien on a building where you perform professional services, it has to be done within 75 days and you have to file suit. You can't just get the lien on the building, you actually have to litigate. So that's kind of out the door. Talking to lawyers, trying to get a nasty gram on a lawyer letterhead. We've done all that kind of stuff. But it all goes back to relationship management. From the time you get that new connection, you need to establish realistic expectations of your process and what you can deliver. And you have to build a relationship of trust that goes both ways. And I know as you're growing a business, you need every dollar you can get, right? But there are good clients and bad clients, and there are opportunities you should probably turn away from. I know it's really hard to do. Brandon kind of laughs when I turn somebody down because it does not happen very often. Resource management. So I think, Brandon, if you want to talk a little bit about resource management, I've kind of talked about getting the client, right? Getting that new work, getting them in the door. And there's a lot of people here who have presented really good presentations on collecting data, processing data, developing data into a Revit model. But this is going to be more about just running the business, just keeping the wheels turning on this thing.
Yeah, so my name is Brandon French. I'm the project manager, head of field services for TrueScan. And this is just kind of what works for us. Just like Brendan said, I'm no professional by any means, but I do think that we have a very solid team, and this is kind of what works for us. Our jobs are all over the country. Just this year alone, and it's only February 7th, this is my 10th state that I've been in. And all of my guys are also doing that as well. So finding people that can go out and collect data all across the country while they also have significant others and children and other things going on in their personal lives. It's very important that I show them appreciation and keep them invested in TrueScan as a whole, because we want them to not only go and perform the work that we need them to, but we want them to realize the dream with us. We're trying to grow this thing. And for me, that's just been good communication, keeping team morale up. Every night, give my guys a call. Hey, I know you're in Michigan and there's 3 feet of snow on the ground. How you doing up there? And I think that goes a long way for our teams. I know they really like to hear from us at the end of the day, and it kind of lets them know that, hey, I'm not out here on an island. One thing that I found that works for us is each of our teams, we outfit entirely. We don't trade scanners, tripods, Matterports, whatever it may be. We outfit, every team has an RTC 360, a Matterport, a drone, Scan and Go Uplift 500. We want them to be their own self-contained units, because that way I can send them to whatever job that I need them to go to. And by the time I ship that Scan and Go back and forth to my guy in Florida 2 times, I could have already purchased another one. So that's something that works for us. I let our guys handle all of their own travel. At the last firm that I was with, we had a travel department. I would let them know where I was going, and they would get me my flight and my hotel and my rental. But this is such a dynamic industry. I was down in Atlanta, and I've had Brendan call me, hey, on your way home, could you swing by Manassas, Virginia, because we just got a signed contract. And so it's nice to have our guys, every one of our guys has their own company card, and they book their own travel, because I don't know where I'm going to need them next. And quite frankly, it's probably going to be somewhere along their way home that I'm going to need them to stop to pick up this job along the way. And I don't want my guys to be locked into a hotel somewhere. A lot of times when we're on the road, we're booking a hotel as we're sitting in that parking lot, because I don't know how long this job is going to take to finish. And by the time I get it done, maybe I want to be halfway to my next city as opposed to stuck in this one. Equipment and software, I don't really have a lot of expertise. You can make spreadsheets to keep up with your hardware maintenance and things like that. I don't think there's any valuable insight that I have there. But the responsiveness of our team, it's tough. It's tough to call somebody on a Monday night and ask them if they can be in Los Angeles on Tuesday morning, right? So just developing a great team and really appreciating those guys and telling them, hey, go out and get a couple beers, get a meal on the company tonight. I know we've been running you hard. You've been on the road for the last 3 weeks straight. Just letting them know that they're appreciated, because we all know how hard it is to find people right now. So we want to make sure that we keep these really great people in any way that we can.
Where do you find people?
The industry. Our last hire was somebody that I worked with at the last architecture firm that I was at. I have a theory. Brendan calls it my bartender theory, and I know a lot of other service providers are looking for survey professionals, right? I look for bartenders because I want somebody that is not encumbered by a significant other, kids. I also think that bartenders are good at adapting quickly. They're very good under stress, and a lot of them, especially because that's where I came from. I was a bartender for 12 years, and at some point they want to move on, and you start talking about 401ks and benefits and all the travel that you're going to get to do, and they're used to being on their feet all day. So I think that a bartender is a very good place to start when building your team of field people.
They work unusual hours.
Yeah,
They deal with cranky customers. Can't tell you how many buildings we've showed up to, and the manager was like, "Who are you? Why are you here?"
Yeah, and that is another thing. We need people that are presentable, that can put the client at ease. Because like Brendan said, we show up a lot of times and people are not happy that we're there. They're not happy that we're going to spend the next 3 days in their facility, bugging them to unlock all the doors, popping their ceiling tiles, whatever it may be. So I need a team that can go out and kind of smooth those things over. And their bartenders are good with people. So that's my bartender theory.
It's not proven theory.
Not yet. It's worked 2 out of 2.
They can mix a good drink, and sometimes you need a good drink.
Yeah, absolutely. But with that, I'll turn it back over to Brendan.
Sure. I put equipment and software on here. We don't install firmware updates or download new updates for software packages. I won't name any particular brands or vendors until we've talked to another firm. Hey, have you guys installed 2.0 yet? Does it work? We've had so many bugs and so many hiccups that it's actually our policy that we make sure somebody else has tested it before we even bother. Same goes with equipment, not just the software and firmware updates, but mobile mapping systems and drones. I mean, you go upstairs to the exhibit floor and there's so many different solutions. Cintu is one that comes to mind, and there's a number of people who are trying to compete in that space. It seems like there's new providers coming on with different solutions every single day. And so having a good network of people who have tried this or tried that is really valuable, so you don't spend your precious time purchasing, learning, troubleshooting something that in the end you don't really like and won't use. Last thing is customer experience. I talked about it before. You got to deliver. You get these people to trust you with your project. You got to make sure that you have your internal processes developed enough so that you're going to deliver on time, on budget, and exactly what they expected. If they think their point cloud is going to play music, then you have sorely missed. You have to make sure that they understand what it can do and what it can't do. They have to understand if you're building a model from them, you're not modeling everything. Nobody has ever modeled everything in the building. I do get a lot of clients ask me, can you just give me a price to model everything? And once you do make that delivery, we typically try to set up a handoff meeting. So we try to do a kickoff meeting, talk about the facility that we're going to be working in, talk about what they really need in that facility, what they're expecting the point cloud to do. It won't jump up and down. What they need in the model, what they're trying to get to. That's before we even go in. And then after we deliver it, we set up a little meeting. We walk them through our process. We show them our Revit model with the point cloud loaded. We show them how we've built out certain building elements. We show them how we have not built out certain building elements. We didn't do the soffits because you didn't want to pay for them. But you can load the point cloud and see that they're there. You just need to be aware of it. I've had a lot of clients tell me they don't load the point cloud because they don't need it because we modeled everything. All that goes into your customer experience. I can't tell you how many architects I've talked to in my career who used it a long time ago and scanning just doesn't work. Okay, well, why doesn't it work? So having a good customer experience is really paramount. Having a good sales process is really paramount. Unfortunately, the most important time to do sales is when you're really busy, because this industry has a lot of peaks and valleys. Every week, we're trying to figure out how we're going to get it all done, and then we're trying to figure out what we're going to do the next week. So it's definitely important that you do all these things together. If I have 3 strong recommendations for you to take away today, number 1 is understand your value proposition. Why should I use your service and why should I trust you? Number 2 is have a strategic plan. Maybe it's not written, maybe it's not all beautifully published, but at least understand how many hours a week you're going to spend on marketing. How many hours a week you need to spend making calls to clients to make sure they're happy, to see if they need another project. How you're going to build out standard operating procedures to make sure you're getting good quality control on everything that goes out the door. And then, the third point is network. Meet other people here. There's a lot of great people here. A lot of people here, a lot smarter and more experienced than me, who are incredibly willing to help. I'm always amazed by this industry. And stop doing this. Well, thanks guys for listening. We still have some time. If anybody would like to ask questions. Yes, sir. Do you have a mic?
Hi. I'm kind of curious. It sounds like you really got the streamlined field ops, and I saw that you did the modeling. What kind of balance do you have between your field crews and your modeling crews? Is it for every field crew you have 5 guys that do the modeling? We just started playing with Revit. I do civil surveying, pretty straightforward. The guy that does the scan, he ultimately is in civil 3D and he hands off the deliverable. It's just one guy running the process. I understand you guys, you got a field crew, and then I'm trying to get warmed up to Revit and taking our scanner services to the next level. I'm just kind of curious of the balance for a 2-man field crew. You've got 5 guys running Revit, or how does that work? How do you balance that out or measure that?
It depends on your volume. I think we typically model 50 to 70% of the projects that we scan. So a lot of our clients just want the point cloud. Some of them want the model too. But aside from just modeling, you also need techs in the office to do the registration, to post-process that data after it comes in from the field. And so historically, it's been like a day of post-processing to a day of field work, so it's been a nice 1-to-1 ratio. A lot of the new advances in equipment have lowered that ratio, so it takes less time in the office to process. But at the same time, the scanners are collecting more data, so it balances itself out, right? But we're about 50-50. So for every guy in the field, we pretty much have somebody in the office registering, post-processing data, and developing revenue models.
Another follow-up question. Sometimes I think I'm crazy, but our business model has been, and we're pretty unique in this, is that we want to guide it to understand the flow all the way through to the final deliverable. And I meet a lot of field guys at other companies, and they're just in the field, and they see our guy, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to take this back, register it, I got 2 days to finish it, and then I get another project. And it's like, by doing that, any holes or misses or missed point shots or poor line reflectors all reflect back on the same guy that scanned it. Do you ever run into a little bit of problems where you've got one crew scanning, another crew registering, and somebody's getting into Revit going, this is screwed up or whatever? And do you manage that and then follow it back to the guys in the field?
Absolutely. We have standards set up within the company. So what they have been working on is trying to establish our in-house standards for check shots and protective survey stuff. But we're doing civil more often than anything else. I see some heads shaking there because I'm curious more of the field guys that we get to play in the office. Does it matter?
Yes, it absolutely matters. The more understanding you have of the entire process, the more successful you're going to be, no doubt. This guy right here, we just made him our manager of our field services. It kind of sucks because he's the fastest field guy I've ever had. He not only does 50 to 100% more scans per day, but he'll do 20 to 25% less scans per building. So I send him and another guy into a building, they'll overscan it because they're worried about not getting enough data on the corner. Brandon knows he got data on this wall and that wall, and they meet in the middle. So he'll skip scans that he knows the modeling text can make logical inferences on. You got a bunch of beams. Our guys make sure they get data on both sides of every beam. Brandon knows that all those beams are the same size, so he'll get a lot of data on a lot of them, but as long as he gets a little data on all of them, the modeling text can make that jump. A lot of our field guys haven't had the benefit of being in the office to do registrations, so they don't understand sometimes that they space those scans a little too far apart and they're getting wonky. They haven't spent a lot of time in Revit, so they don't always understand what it looks like to try and develop out a building element from scan data. We've talked about having more coordination meetings. It's something this guy pushes all the time. Problem is our scan techs are 500 miles away, and anytime we try to schedule a meeting the night before, somebody's getting on an airplane to go to a project. But having those people see the whole process and understanding it,
You'll have the greatest scanning techs out there, honestly. I wish that I could get all of our techs to follow a project from beginning to end, to be quite honest with you. Watch me propose on it. Follow that process. Let's go out and scan it. Come back in, register it. How about you sit there with our Revit model while we're going through and modeling it, because it only makes us better, because then you can understand where the pinch points and the headaches are at each step of that process. And then inside of your role, which is going to be going out and laser scanning, you can help mitigate any of that by performing your work with a better understanding of the project as a whole. I wish we had that kind of time. We don't, unfortunately. I've wanted to do that since I first started laser scanning, and I haven't had the time to sit down through every process. But with some experience, yeah, I understand the process a little bit more.
more information is better. Finding talented people who can make some of those critical decisions in the field. One thing we do is with our traditional survey folks, if they're learning scanning, if it's raining, your surveyors typically aren't working. So if they have a weather day, we'll bring them in and have them do a registration. And they can see what it looks like to scan around the corner of a building and not have enough overlapping data and some of the pain it causes the registration tech, right? So cross-training is definitely important. I think there was another question.
Well, first of all, I was a bartender, so I like your It's good. But I don't know if it's a question so much as a comment or something to look out for, but do you have a strategy for not having to pay for $5 million in liability insurance when you go on a construction project? Because we get that one all the time where we have our liability coverage and then we get ready to go out and do the job, and the contractor comes back and says, "Oh, no, you need
More.
You need another $10,000 on your end, and that's, like you said, more than you're paying for the job, more than you're going to make on the job to up your insurance." So I don't know if you have a trick, or just, it's worth mentioning that
It is a big problem. I'm not going to say it occurs a lot, but every year it definitely comes up. And we've looked at doing like temporary contract cap adjustments. But honestly, I'd say like 60 to 80% of the scan jobs we do are one day. We can move. And so a lot of our fees, like I said, our average fee is less than 10 grand. That doesn't buy you much insurance. One thing we have argued and been successful in is that we're a professional service provider. We're not a general contractor. Those contracts come up a lot when you're working for a large GC. They also come up when you're working for an owner like higher education. Sometimes healthcare have these weird requirements. Look, we're providing let's say a $10,000 service. I don't need an extra $3 million in umbrella policy. We try to have those conversations, but in the end, if it's going to cost 10 grand in insurance to get a $10,000 job.
Yeah, a lot of times, like you said, it's a one-day job, and a week later they're like, "Well, we need your proof of insurance." I'm like, "We've already done the job."
Oftentimes there's exceptions. You just have to find the right person, because the person asking you for that certificate of insurance might not always be aware of all the nuance. So I would say drill in.
As the scanner in the field, in addition to often finding myself unknown and unwelcome on arrival, do you have a method of sitting with your customers and actually specifying specifically what they want, and then how do you relay that down to the tech in the field so that they don't miss a specific, hookup, tie-in, something like that?
We've tried in our standard proposal to make a checklist of the things that we're intended to capture. We asked our clients to review that. We had those conversations, and that checklist, it's our hope that it also serves as a dispatch ticket, as a work order to go out to the field tech. I wish we had a better system in place, but it's honestly just a one-on-one conversation. Hey, tomorrow I need you to go scan here, and what's really important about this project is that you capture X. There's nothing worse, though, than having a guy get on a plane and come home and he didn't get whatever it is you didn't tell him to get.
You told me to get structure.
It's inevitable.
Now you're asking about pipes.
Yeah. You didn't say get the pipes.
You told me pipes, I was right there.
Yeah. Great question, though. Gosh, I wish it was more easy to automate. I wish we could have a better ironed out standard procedure, but it's just where we're at right now. It's a lot of conversation.
It is, and our guys, we're fortunate. They're overly cautious and cognizant of what they need to get. And one thing I like about TrueScan, I'm not sure if it's done anywhere else. It wasn't done at my last firm. It's complete transparency. So on the network inside of our project folder, there lies the proposal with the fee on it. And inside of those folders is also all of the archived emails from the entire project, any supply data that we've got from the client. So our guys will jump on there and take a look through all that stuff to just kind of help them get a better feel of the project. And usually they'll do that before speaking with us, so they're already coming to us with a good understanding of it, and we just kind of dial that in, like I said, just a one-on-one conversation. I don't know that we necessarily ever be able to get away from that.
You can make longer checklists. Like our standard scoping proposal for scanning has interior, color, grayscale, exterior, color, grayscale, roof, basement, above ceiling, mechanical spaces, penthouses. And I can check those boxes when I give it to the client and say, hey, did you notice we did not check above ceiling? And then the same thing for the tech. He's like, hey, boss, you didn't say roof on this one. Am I not scanning the roof? And so it helps to have those conversations. And you could make longer checklists, right?
Well, just the availability of the initial scope, I guess, would help a lot.
Yep, but it's a balance. I'm not going to write down every single billing element because I have a 100-page scope proposal.
Thanks. Hey guys, if you don't feel comfortable answering any of the questions I'm going to ask you, that's fine, but they might be too proprietary or whatever. But your guys in the field, including travel, ballpark, how many hours a week are they working?
When they're traveling, I'd say 50 average.
50 average? Okay.
60 or 70 is not unheard of.
Yeah, that's our guys do it every week, 60, 65. So I was, but they complain, and we do our best, but it ends up.
One of the things that this guy thought of recently was scheduled time at home.
We do that. Yep.
Do you?
Yeah.
And put it on the calendar?
Yep. It's on the calendar, and unless every fourth week they're on the road 3 weeks in a row. Then they have what we would call an office week, but they're just home. They don't really do much, And then every quarter, on top of that, they get a week where they're nobody's going to call them, nobody's going to do anything. They're just off, And so it's 3 and 1, 3 and 1, 3, and then so it's pretty good. They get like 13 or 14 weeks where they're not doing anything, And then we try to. Well, we've done the math, and we can recapture their pay in those 3 weeks, right? So that's the most, what we have to do, right? But thanks for telling me that. The second one is, since you do your registration in the office, how do you get the data out of the field and to the office? What's your method there? Not that that's a problem for anybody, but
hope that you have good hotel Wi-Fi. Typically through the VPN, if it's 60 gigs or less, I can usually get it done overnight. Just get a copy. If not, FedEx. We have a FedEx account overnight.
Right. So that's what we do.
We have hotspots.
Yeah, hotspots. All of our guys have T5, Samsung, terabyte solid state drives, and it's just a rotating ship back to the office.
If you've got to do that, right?
You can never depend on a hotel Wi-Fi.
No.
And we've tried different applications that sync the data, so even if there's a timeout on the Wi-Fi or they lose connection, the bandwidth gets too low. But inevitably, they wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, boss, it crapped out on me." So if it's really critical to get that data home, it's going on a hard drive overnight. Because we have a FedEx account in most places in the U.S., it's $30.
Right. I'm talking to a mirror here almost. That's exactly how we do it.
We've actually wondered, remember the old internet cafes back in the day? It'd be really cool if there was people that sold high-speed internet.
It's called Starbucks.
Yeah.
They have pretty good Wi-Fi. Do they have plug-in?
Sit there for 6 hours.
Exactly. You can't sleep for 3 days because you had too much coffee, right? But yeah, no.
But if somebody had like a T1 line and they charged you
that's true, T1.
minimum fee of 25 and then 25 an hour or something.
Right.
Because a lot of our data set, if you have good internet, it doesn't take that long to transfer.
As soon as 5G is really real all over the place, you're not going to have any trouble anymore. But
fingers crossed.
Until, right? And so my last question, our projects are about the same average size as yours. Turnaround time from the day you get the okay to go to the site to you delivering the project, what does it average?
We typically tell people that we can mobilize within 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay.
Most people want to know how fast we can get to their project.
Right.
I think I actually have it here on one of my slides. I thought I did. It's John Russo's quote. Actually, how fast can you get to my project? Faster than you can authorize it.
Right, right.
So a classic client wants you to be there tomorrow, and you get them a proposal, and you stay up late to get it done, and then they sit on it for 8 weeks. We will mobilize really quickly. We vet our clients, right? Is this a good one? Are they a premier firm that we want to do a lot of business with? Brandon, can you go tonight? This guy's like, yes. He's like, there's a flight at 7. I'm like, does that give you enough time to actually drive to the airport?
Right, right.
So we'll do the fire drill for people. But typically we say 1 to 2 weeks to mobilize. If we're only on site for a day, we'll say 2 to 3 days to turn around the point cloud.
If there's a model,
If there's a model, it just depends on the complexity of the model, the level of development, like how much detail they need in it. Is it just walls, windows, doors? Do they want MEP? You know, do they want reflected ceiling plans?
right?
As a rule of thumb, architecture and structure take about 3 days of modeling per day of fieldwork, and MEP takes about 2. So if they want a full-blown model, structure, architecture, MEP, and it was a 1-day scan, it usually takes us about 5 days to get it modeled.
Gotcha.
That's just like a big picture.
Yep. No, it's very similar to our experience, and
Okay.
that's it's a great double check to hear from you guys. You know,
Not too far off.
No, that's right. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately for us, most of our clients want that entire list that you're saying: the MEP, the RCP, above the grid. You know,
Can you just model
roof,
it all?
exterior,
Model it all.
model it all.
How much money you got?
Yeah, well, that's
We can
also an argument that
Nuts and bolts and doorknobs on, but
right we end up having. So I appreciate it. Don't want to take up everybody's time. So
no
thank
problem.
you.
Find me afterwards.
That was great. Yeah.
I got time for one more.
So, on collaboration, how often do you have other scanning companies reach out to service providers, reach out to you guys, say, hey, you know, can you guys fly out to, you know, Kansas City or, you know, someplace in Florida or whatever, we're kind of double booked, you know, we kind of, you know, at our wit's end with our bandwidth here with guys, you know, can you guys come out and do something? How often does that happen?
I flew here yesterday. It's happened 3 times at this conference.
Where you got called out, just like from another service provider, who's like, hey, we also scan, but we just don't have enough to go out there.
One of them's got a very hard, specific long-term project. Another one needs regular help with overflow and didn't realize that we have the capabilities that we do, and we have the experience doing their type of projects. He was like, really? Can you help with mine? I told somebody, I lived in Alaska for a long time, he's like, I got a project up there on a remote military base. Have you ever done one of those? So it happens all the time.
We have 2 guys in Michigan right now working for another service provider.
Yeah, I forgot about that. They're actually in northern Michigan right now doing a job for somebody else. And we've done all kinds of NDA agreements. We have one guy that's so protective of his clients. I actually have an email address from his company. So when I need to coordinate building access and deliverables, I have to email them from his company. We have strict NDAs with him. We're not allowed to wear any of our branded gear when we go to scan. Just in case the client shows up, he doesn't want them to know anything about TrueScan. Which is fine. I'm happy to protect relationships. They're hard to get.
Yeah.
But we've done all kinds of weird and crazy stuff to help other people out.
Yeah.
We've given work.
So it goes both ways then too. It's like,
Yeah,
hey,
those
you know,
crazy
you guys gotta
clients.
call you guys up at the same time, you know. Yeah, it's like you guys can get called out too, you know, or you guys call other people out in case you guys are stretched thin, guys that you trust and who are competent and doing all that. So that's right.
Regardless, it's just a very collaborative industry. It's such a phenomenal thing, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
We'll bid against our biggest competition maybe 12 times a year. We'll win some, but it's not, our competition isn't people within, good providers within the industry. Our competition is the architecture industry and the engineering industry adopting this technology and making it standard on all of their practices. And so if we can all help each other out, and if you give your client a good experience, it's going to help all of us out. And so that's my favorite part about this industry and coming to these conferences.
Yeah, I feel like there's not really like this like shortage of clientele that you have to like, you know, just hunt for and just, you know, like nickel and dime, oh, I can do it, you know, I feel like there's enough to go around.
Yeah.
You know,
The market's far from saturated
yeah.
with scanning providers. And it's unlimited amount of consultants that need our services.
And vice versa, yeah.
So there's tons of room for all of us. Plenty of work.
Good to know.
Cool. Good question.
I'm gonna tag in on that real quick before we conclude the session. You know, TrueScan is both a client and a vendor to me. We work with these guys, they do outstanding work. There's others in this room that I can say the same for. We collaborate very closely, and it's an incredibly beneficial mutual relationship that I've experienced over time. You know, you have the trust of someone you know. You know, you can have a very successful relationship. So, you guys like this session? All right.